today, when we're talking about going into the home, it is one of the most vulnerable opportunities we have as entrepreneurs is going into someone's home, right? When we think about consumer, we go into the store, we go into the grocery, things like that. We're going into their environment. But when we're in home services, having amazing people to represent your brand, it's one of the most critical aspects of the business. And so we're going into the home, building trust with the consumer.
To kick us off, I'll have you introduce yourself and tell me your title as well, and then tell us the origin of Junkluggers. So take us back to the early days and how the business got started.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Justin Waltz. I am the president of the Junkluggers. And Junkluggers, we were founded in 2004. We were founded based on sustainable junk removal services. And the idea for Junkluggers came from our former CEO, Josh Cohen. When studying abroad in college, one of his friends mentioned that making $100 for lugging away a neighbor's fridge, and he thought, this is pretty awesome. Like, I can do that. After that, Josh came back. He built a business from the ground up again in 2004, and he quickly learned that junk and being able to haul away junk often meant more to his customers. And he realized that often we were removing memories, items of sentimental value. And this is ultimately how the Junkluggers and our mission, our vision, and our team, how we became passionate about treating the removal of property with care, with the mission and vision to remove and keep as many items out of the landfill as possible through many strategies. That's diversion, rehoming, recycling, reusing, or ultimately giving back to the community. And at the Junkluggers today, that's still the mission, and it's our biggest differentiator, which is we offer sustainable disposal services to both junk removal residential customers and commercial customers, both local, commercial, and national clients today.
That's incredible. And obviously a journey of a lot of growth and like adding different services and offerings. In the early days, was it the founder who was doing like the lugging of things? And how did that initial team kind of grow when they were getting started?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I also have about a 20-year background in junk removal. So Josh and I have known each other for quite a while. And I've heard of his stories back in the day being on the truck. And so it started with just a pickup truck and Josh. And then Josh actually invited his brother, Zach, into the business. And the very first truck was a very beat up old kind of landscaping truck. And that was the first vehicle of scale, ultimately allowing to hold larger items. And then from there, as the business grows, one of the most common themes in business when we're talking about entrepreneurship is, are you working in your business? Are you working on your business? And so Josh and Zach quickly realized that getting off of the truck, going out and building the business through community involvement, through networking, and through old school mailer and mailbox tactics, which was really popular back then, the business started to grow. It became a need in the community, especially around the Connecticut area where we started. And then ultimately, the very first hire is a new driver so that Josh could focus on growing the business by either selling the services, again, networking in the community, as well as the give back. And so being able to work with local charities. So absolutely, the first scale of the business is getting off the truck. We tell that to our franchise owners as well, and growing through hiring amazing people. So not only did the business scale through our differentiation of diversion, rehoming, recycling, but also our people. Today, when we're talking about going into the home, it is one of the most vulnerable opportunities we have as entrepreneurs is going into someone's home, right? When we think about consumer, we go into the store, we go into the grocery, things like that. We're going into their environment. But when we're in home services, having amazing people to represent your brand, it's one of the most critical aspects of the business. And so we're going into the home, building trust with the consumer. And that was at the forefront of our business since day one.
Incredible. And I know you mentioned you're a franchise model now, but can we talk a little bit about the original growth? So when he started in Connecticut and grew and then had drivers, what was the initial growth like? Was it then just expanding the service area? Was it going after a different major market? How did that initial growth look?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And as business owners, we typically are always looking to innovate, right? And so as entrepreneurs, there's always going to be an opportunity to innovate, especially in the ADD world of entrepreneurship, chasing squirrels. And at Junkluggers, we absolutely did that as well. We have looked at disposal dumpsters, dumpster rentals. We've looked at moving, so residential moving services, and attempted and tested those. Our biggest opportunity for growth was expanding the location and expanding where we service. So first of all, it was kind of up and down the I-95 corridor of the Connecticut market, which then landed us into New York. Now, when we landed in New York, there are the boroughs in Brooklyn and Queens, which was a more urban environment for us, but then ultimately Manhattan, which had its own barriers and its own challenges for getting into, which includes parking, storage, overall traffic, disposal facilities, and recycling facilities, which is a completely different challenge in an urban environment. So we were able to expand all up and down the East Coast with the knowledge that we had from both Connecticut and going into New York City. There's a lot of learnings on operating in a suburban environment versus an urban environment, and being able to go into both of those markets and expand rapidly gave us a ton of insights. I always say we stubbed our 10 toes 20 times, and that was a learning opportunity. We also did attempt, innovative models like, again, residential moving, dumpster services. One of my favorite chapters from Good to Great, Jim Collins, one of my favorite business books, is kind of the hedgehog model, which is finding out what you are really, really good at, and then focusing, getting hyper focused, and staying in that business. And so ultimately today, that's the mistakes that we've made gives us the opportunity to present that to franchise owners and perfect our model, and that's where we are today.
That's awesome. I want to know a little bit about this growth and kind of these different areas that you grew into, even just like donation or give back programs. How did the team educate themselves or like know what they wanted to try? Was there a certain thing that you felt you were doing to look into those opportunities or trial and error them in like a more efficient way?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. And one of the best things about our business is that when we start filling up trucks, it's a forcing function of having to donate and recycle and rehome. And so you start to get really creative or become an expert in anything and everything. So from the residential side, we're talking about mattresses, old furniture, sporting goods, soft goods like plates, and all the things that you might find in your kitchen cabinets or your bathroom cabinets, right? Soft goods that we utilize, all the way up to really large industrial or commercial projects that include steel, aluminum, construction debris, you name it. And so over time, and in our remix model, which is our home goods and our donation and community centers, where we offer the ability to give back to the community in a more of a formal setting, over time, we started to sort, recycle, create facilities. And we have facilities today where we come back and we sort a lot of those items. And we get really efficient in finding local partners in all of those areas. And we become essentially a centralized hub for the community in all of those things that I just mentioned. So some of those might be actual charity partners that are looking for specific items like furniture or soft goods. Other times it's going to be more of an industrial environment where, in order for us to keep things out of the landfill, we have to partner with specific recycling centers like metal recycling. We also do a lot of e-waste and electronic recycling, which we become the partners in the community to educate. And a lot of times we do free drop-offs as well for community residents. And then we end up transporting those recyclables to facilities that are more equipped. And this is all they do. So when you think about sorting and diversion and rehoming, we've become the centralized element in the community that collects essentially everything. And then we have to be the experts in diversion, in recycling, diversion, or determining, is this a piece that can go to a charity? Is this a piece that goes to more of a commercial recycling facility? So from there, all of that was done through trial and error. And to be honest with you, a warehouse full of stuff, you eventually just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. And you become the expert really quickly when you are forced to learn how to donate and divert, which, because it's been in our mission since day one, we don't throw it in the landfill. And so that's kind of that's been the most fun also, is just learning about everything. Recently, I'm still learning. I've been in the business for 20 years. And one of the things that I learned recently about clothing and clothing donation is that there are areas in the world where we donate and ship clothing, but we're not doing a good job of recycling that clothing. And so there's even more of a push today than there was 20 years ago for end of life in consumer. And so we're actually going to see this side of the business continue to grow, which is how do we donate and dispose of certain items at the end of life, knowing that we're buying all these things on the front end. And so we can talk for hours about recycling and diversion, but this side of the business continues to grow, and it's really exciting.
That's awesome and so cool to hear about. I think my last question on this whole like origin journey is that transition from being a small business to deciding you wanted to do the franchise model.
Mhm.
Maybe if there's any like prominent things you remember about why franchise model felt like a good fit for Junkluggers, and kind of like the successes or structures that you see franchise having.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And so I love the franchise business model because entrepreneurship and business ownership can be stressful. It can be very difficult, and we know today that through social media, through Shark Tank, however you want to know it, more and more Americans are very interested in entrepreneurship. And so I've been a big fan of the franchise business model ever since I graduated college. So the Junkluggers, we went into and discovered the franchise business model early on as an opportunity to expand the mission across the country, utilizing investors in the form of franchise owners. And when you bring in franchise owners, the franchise owners come to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And so the franchise business model is a great model because we bring in active investors in the form of franchise owners who are invested and in the brand, executing the brand at their local level with the knowledge of the Junkluggers that we've obtained in the business, Connecticut and New York, and all of the expertise and learnings. So that includes bottling up and ensuring that the business model is sound in training and support, marketing, the financials of the business, operations, which includes the trucks, the drivers, the diversion strategies in our recycling and our remix business model. We were able to capture that and build that into a business model and ensure that we could teach and train that to franchise owners around the country, knowing that the residential side of the business and the commercial side of the business, there's an opportunity in almost every single suburban or urban market in the country. The franchise business model allows us to then bring in those entrepreneurs and those investors and train and support those folks into perpetuity. That includes business ownership, coaching, hiring coaching, marketing, you name it, financial modeling, tracking data. So we have a lot of franchisees that come in from either corporate America or more of an engineering or mathematics background where they are typically familiar with budgeting and KPIs. And then we take the business model and teach them the business and then go out and build it in their local market. Franchising is also a great opportunity to be a part of the community. And so when you're an entrepreneur or when you're by yourself as an entrepreneur, you typically need to seek out a community of your own, or we typically lean into our family. And so when we're in business by ourselves and then we lean into our family that they're all employees of an organization, it's really tough to find that connection. And so one of the best benefits of franchising is the ability to engage with the community. And so being a part of and having the support from the corporate team, but also learning from each other. And so today, and then looking back at the franchise growth that we've achieved, the opportunity to learn from each other and share best practices. We use tools like video calls, conference calls, Zoom, Slack, you name it, email. We have peer groups. And so for me and for the business and Junkluggers, the evolution of getting into franchising was the quickest and easiest way to get our brand spread across the nation. And we went all the way across the country in just a few short years.